Welcome to Mana's Seal YouTube channel. The previous video link is on the description box or on the top right card. Volume 12. The Paladin of the Holy Kingdom. The dwarves gave them rough directions. However, it differed slightly from what the gate guards had told them, and it felt like they were being sent slightly off course. However, her real objective was not asking directions. I see. Thank you very much. Gustavo, give them a token of appreciation. Gustavo dismounted from his horse and produced a small pouch of coins. You do know all we did was give directions, right? It's fine. After all, we've interrupted your work. Really? Well, sorry about that. The dwarves accepted Gustavo's gift and smiled. Well, when we get some good grub with this, we'll thank the men and women of the Holy Kingdom for it. No, there's no need. Speaking of which, what are you doing here? You can't tell. We're laying roads. His Majesty himself requested it of us. Well, it's mainly the residents who are doing the work. We're here to serve as technical advisors. Gahahaha, the dwarves laughed heartily. I see. And the undead over there are. They're skeletons that His Majesty lent us, can't you tell? Honestly, you can't beat the undead when it comes to pure manual labor. It certainly changed my view of them. Controlling the undead, huh? It's not like there's anything surprising about it. Well, I guess it can't be helped because you're travelers. Still, it's only to be expected in the Sorcerer's Kingdom, no? I've heard that the undead are showing their stuff in the nearby villages. After all, they can complete tedious chores like planting, and so on with just an order. I mean, look, the undead don't tire, they don't sleep, and they don't eat. In addition, they also understand what we want to say, so they do fantastically when given a task within their means. Things being what they are, you don't even need to work like a dog anymore. Even our country's starting to make use of them too. By your country, you mean a nation of dwarves separate from the Sorcerer's Kingdom? Oh yes. That's where we come from, but now we stay in the Sorcerer's Kingdom's Demihuman district. Demihuman district? Yup. It's where all the races who are human live. They say it used to be the paupers district of this city, but it was torn down. Then, it was rebuilt in order to let races of all kinds live comfortable lives. Well, it might be a while before it's complete, but work on the dwellings for races smaller than you humans, like we dwarves, for instance, has already begun. Originally, we came here to take charge of that building work. The dwarf's colleague jumped into the conversation. I see. But if the paupers district was torn down, where did the original residents go? Remedio's eyes went to the undead. We're not too sure, but I think they were sent to villages or something. There's a lot of ruined, abandoned villages around this city, and I heard they were sent there to rebuild them and work the fields. That's where being able to command the undead comes in handy. If I'm not wrong, they've begun large-scale farming with the undead, or something. That's why food prices in this country are pretty cheap. It doesn't matter that it's cheap. The important thing is that it's good. And the wine. Oh, I fattened right up after moving to this city. If I go back all plump like this, my wife's going to yell where's my share at me. I'd better slim down before returning home. We really lucked out in the lottery. Gahahaha, the dwarves laughed again. Finally, there's those horse-shaped undead. Do you know their names? Beats me. Still, doesn't matter if we don't know, right? They're not harming anyone. They're a bag of bones, yet they're so damn strong, makes them perfect for moving goods, right? I see. Thank you. Same here. Best of luck to all of you. After bidding the dwarves farewell, the group continued toward the inn once more. Captain, why did you ask the name of that horse-shaped undead creature? Nia was mystified. She had thought that was what would have interested the captain least. Gustavo. That was because you were acting strangely when you saw that thing. Really? Say, do you know the name of that undead being? Well, a name does come to mind, but I think I must have made a mistake. It can't be, I was probably mistaken. I can't imagine an undead creature like that could ever be controlled. Well, if you say so, then so be it. And that was the end of that. Before long, the instructions they had followed brought them before a luxurious inn, probably the shining gold pavilion which the gate guards had recommended to them. While its name was written on the signboard, the kingdom's script was different from that of the Holy Kingdom, so they could only make a rough guess at what it said. The kingdom and the empire had once been the same country, so there were many similarities between them, but the Holy Kingdom had never been tied to either of those countries, so they differed greatly. Gustavo, go ahead before us and book our rooms. Understood. Oi, you two, with me. Gustavo brought two paladins with him to the inn. Several minutes later, one of them returned. Captain, we've successfully booked the rooms. The stables are behind the inn, so they'd like us to bring the horses there. All right, I understand. Squire Baraja, bring the horses over. Understood. She tied the horses' reins to a tree in front of the inn, and then she led them to the stables one at a time. Taking care of horses was a squire's job, but the inn was also obliged to help out as well, and so Nia accepted their goodwill and entered the inn. She smelled a fragrance in the air and thought, maybe this is to prevent the stink of the stables from getting in. Was it from some kind of fragrant wood or perfume? From the outside, it seemed to be of the same grade as the inn from the kingdom, but after seeing the interior, it might have well been a rank above the latter. She even felt a little embarrassed walking around inside it, with her body that was dirty. Bathing for them was essentially just rinsing with water, until they thought they did not stink from their long travels. Nia stepped forward to the room which the inn staff had told her about, and knocked on the door. Who is it? Squire Nia Baraja. In front of the door stood a paladin, still in armor. The discrepancy between the Irantal they imagined and what they had actually seen made them feel that resting would be a waste of time, and so they had decided to take action without delay. You come just in time. We're about to start the meeting. While she wondered if she needed to take part, it did no good to ask too much. The people on top had spoken, and obeying them was the proper course of action. Then let's go seek an audience with the Sorcerer King as we planned. Gustavo, I'm counting on you. Of course, Captain. But what else should we do apart from that? The original plan was to meet people in power and ask for their aid. Since Momin was an adventurer, they had originally planned to head to the Adventurers Guild. However, according to Ryrarius, the Adventurers Guild now was essentially closed down, and requests were handled by the Sorcerer King's underlings. Let's drop by the guild anyway. Let's see if we can't entice some idle adventurers who can come to the Holy Kingdom. I understand. In that case. Gustavo gave orders to 2 paladins, and they immediately sprang into motion. Nia wondered what kind of tasks she would be given. Usually, it was a squire's job to polish the paladins' armor and swords, do their laundry, among other sundry tasks. Ironing and arranging their rumpled clothes was also part of that. Most paladins now should have gone through such experiences. Although, that might not be the case for our incredibly talented captain, who directly became a paladin. Then how about the others? Would they wait within the inn? When I was gathering rumors in the kingdom, I was led to believe that this would be a grim and dark city. However, it's far more ordinary than I expected. I trust letting a few people outside would not pose a problem. Well, it's hard to tell at this stage. I believe there should be no sudden danger in that. Is that so? Then have several people go to the temples and see if they can help introduce us to Momin. The ruler of this city is the Sorcerer King, an undead being. It wouldn't be too good to have ties to the temples, no. Still, we're paladins. Where should we go if not to the temples? Gustavo had a sour look on his face. Remedios had a point. That's also true. Also, it would also be good to see and hear about life in the city from its people, in addition to what the Sorcerer King has allowed us to see, right? You have a point there. But what should they do if they saw something which they, as paladins, could not tolerate? Gustavo was having trouble responding because he was thinking about that question. Nia answered her own question. Paladins were beings who embodied justice, so perhaps the right thing for a paladin to do would be to censure the Sorcerer King. However, if the result of doing so meant that the Sorcerer King would not help the Holy Kingdom, meaning that they could not save the masses from their suffering, would that still be the right thing to do? She remembered that her father had once said he did not understand the justice of a paladin. She had not given much thought to it during her days of training, with the goal of becoming a paladin in mind. But perhaps her heart had become soft and weak because of the Holy Kingdom's present state, since she had started thinking more and more about that subject recently. Perhaps her doubts might be cleared up if she could ask her mother, but her mother was no longer among the living. In the end, she could only rely on herself to find the answer. As Nia continued pondering these things, the dialogue continued. A pair of paladins would go to the temples of the 4 gods, while 2 more groups of 2 would collect information in town. Remedios and the others would stay behind to take care of anything that might happen. As expected, Nia was ordered to polish their armor. After the meeting ended, Nia began working on everyone's armor. She wetted a cloth with cold water, and then wiped the mud from the armor. As one might expect of magic armor, there was no damage on its surface. If there were any dents, one would have to hammer them out from the inside, but if one's fingers were clumsy, that would make the surface uneven and ugly. Since Nia had very little confidence in that field, the enchanted armor which the paladins wore was ideal for her. She was very happy to bury her heart and mind in work. That way, she did not need to think of unnecessary things. And so, her forehead beaded with sweat, Nia finished cleaning everyone's armor. Their audience with the Sorcerer King came earlier than expected. Nia could not hide her surprise. That was because it was set to take place the day after Gustavo had gone to plead his case. The paladins of the Holy Kingdom, trailed by Nia, found that the residence of the Sorcerer King which they arrived at was quite shabby. Perhaps it might have been quite ostentatious for someone ruling a city of this grade, but it was entirely unfitting of someone who called himself a king. There was no sense of tranquility born of a rich history, no aura of stateliness, and it did not reflect the whims of one who held power. It seemed like a building constructed for practical purposes. It was quite pitiful compared to the royal palaces of the kingdom or the Holy Kingdom. Yet, this was a domicile of the Sorcerer King. Since this had once been a regional city of the kingdom, he had probably decided to make use of the existing small palace after taking control of it. As the paladins removed their helmets and surveyed the palace, faint traces of disdain appeared on their faces, which only Nia could pick up. Perhaps they were comparing their surroundings with the royal palace of their home country. Who could blame them for that? And then, Nia recalled the ghost ship that they had previously encountered, as well as the undead walking along the streets. Why would a king who held dominion over so many undead of that level choose to stay in such a shabby old palace? I have the feeling that there's some reason for it. If he wanted a luxurious palace, all he'd have to do is order craftsmen like those dwarves to direct the untiring undead to build one. As they passed through the gates of the palace, there were two facing rows of undead creatures, similar to the one they had first encountered upon coming to the city. Unlike the undead they had seen at the gate, they were slimmer and crossed their lances high in the air between them. Flags hung from the tips of the crossed lances. On the right were the flags of the Sorcerer's Kingdom, and on the left were the flags of the Holy Kingdom. Below the flags was a passage that they could move through. After that, music played. While it was a tune she had not heard before, it was probably best to accept this as part of the ceremony of the whole thing. From the depths of her brain, Nia recalled a lecture she had received once.